And so, as I was talking for maybe an hour, or going on from that point, describing the young poet who is balanced and who is a lucky stroke of fate, and he falls in love in high school, let us say, or whatever, and he always has this feels a strong pulling of the mother nature. He wants to take his girl for a nice walk in the forest and go on the bicycle to get a tent and go for not a sexual kind of short ecstasy of the body during some party, drinking and loud music and, the sexual drive aroused. No, he wants to go on a long journey to be embraced by the beauty of nature, and this is his poetic soul is speaking. So in the sense, Eros is in a young days of a future warrior poet more important than the Sexus. That is very important. And today's culture, mass culture, and propaganda and ideology is a completely opposite way. They even have lost at all the concept of Eros. No? They have only erotic saloons, which are sexual massacre, butchery fabrics, manufacturers. Okay, so Eros must be present, luckily, through coincidences in the young days of the future ideal warrior, poet, child, so that he writes poems, he is inspired by poets, he is inspired by teachers in the high school or if there would be from the very beginning, warrior schools, poet warrior schools of our visions, then only those teachers of literature and art would be accepted, who would burn with their own creation, with their own Eros, and they would not have to teach history of art and history of literature. They would perform creative writing and creative speaking and creative art and painting and sculpture and motion and dance and music, and the youth and the girls would be inflamed by this beauty and this devotion, and their souls will open, and that would be the work of Eros, to do, because the Eros is always a phenomena of experience. This is at a distance. You can feel it at a distance even, whereas Sexus is a kind of body perception which is reduced to the closeness of touching, and it is reduced also as far as the ecstatic part of it, the result of it, the convulsions and of the sexual organs, due to the orgasm of the body is reduced to a certain area of the lower part of the body, and it is short. So if you, I have diverted now because of this disturbance. Naturally, I wanted to show you the reality of it. Okay, of this creating. So I had to check. I had an intuition to check if I'm recording this. So I have a look at the recording device, and I see to my unpleasant surprise, that it is not recording. Wow. I immediately stand up, have a second breakfast. During the preparation of the second breakfast, I'm like hobbits in the Lord of the Rings. When I have these days of creating search, it is usually after a day where I spent the whole day in the sun running and swimming and playing tennis and exercising. And fortunately, by positive coincidence, creative coincidence, the next day is cloudy. So I don't have this drive to run out. I stay in the bed, have my first breakfast, and they start to, listen to the depth of my soul, what I want to say. I have no plan. I have an urge. I have a drive. My soul is full of, unspoken words. I truly, when I move around the lake here on those sunny days, I listen frequently to Zarathustra, Thus Spake Zarathustra, an audio recording I have from YouTube or LibriVox. It's read in English quite well, I must confess, it's good. The speaker, the reader, has understood Zarathustra, and he is talking out of the depths of his soul. It is maybe better even than the German original. The German original actually is the best when you can read it. But the speakers, the readers of German philosophical texts today in the media are somehow feeling the obligation to be wise, to be deep, and this is not enough. You cannot have the desire to express deepness and wisdom if you are not itself wise and deep. That is it. In the case of reading Zarathustra, you must have lived that all in your blood for many decades, and this is very rare. So I feel somehow a sympathy for this English-speaking reader, is an American, as well as we can say in America, you can find everything on anything. A lot of decadence, but also unusually bright and smart and deep individuals. That's why America may be also a hope in the sense of, spreading this idea of the heroic, the schools for poetic warriors, as well as Russia, which is becoming very independent, and according to Nietzsche's prophecy, the germs of the overman, of the superman, will not come from a bourgeois, peaceful, organized, well-organized society, like is, used to be Western Europe in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Now it is falling apart, and the 2025, it is a lot of crises here in Western Europe. So maybe the climate is getting better for the birth and education of the poet warrior type of Zarathustra, of his children, because they always come when there is a necessity for it. If they come into a placid, well-nourished, peaceful, kind of slow bourgeois society of consumers, they will be laughed at. They will be like, the last man at the beginning of Zarathustra, when he comes to the city called Pied Cow, and before that he has a certain congregation of admirers who want to see the rope dancer. And he is his first trip. He is ripe with wisdom from his loneliness, 10 years in the cave, in the mountain. He wants to find listeners. So he talks to them about the overman, the superman. And they don't react. they laugh and they say, now we have heard enough of the rope dancer, we want to see him. He says, well, maybe I should talk to them in a different way. So he describes them the last man, how he lives, how he is well-natured and well-preserved and taken care of by the state, and nothing happens and all is peaceful and nobody hurts him and so on. And he is, dumb like a member of the herd. And they shout, give us this last man. This is what we desire. So, and he says, well, I'm not the mouth for these ears. I shall never more speak to the crowds. And then the rope dancer is thrown down by the devil, or what is it, by the ape of Zarathustra. And he takes him on his shoulders and buries him in the forest. And he says, for my first disciple is the dying one, but he is also, and as he is dying, this rope dancer, he says, please help me, I fear the hell. And Zarathustra says, don't be afraid, there's nothing like that. There is no heaven, there is no hell. You have chosen a warrior's life, a life of danger and ecstasy, and you succumb on it. You die because of that, but in this way you are an overgoer. You are preparing the way for others who will bring the Superman. Don't be afraid. They have nothing to fear. So we see that even the time epoch in which the Zarathustrian soul is speaking is important. It was not important in Nietzsche's time to arouse this necessary admiration and necessary desire to change the course of the European history, of the world history. Why? The Romantic movement was over, or was at its peak, or this seeding. Poets were mainly poets. They were not warriors. They were pale young boys from the upper class of wealthy families who have dreamt of other worlds, like Shelley, like Coleridge. They would intoxicate themselves on, hallucinogenic substances, and they would fly into never lands. This is a decadent cognitive will to power, which compensates the inability to live in true real world, the adventure, and create poetry as a trace from your adventure, of your adventure. Maybe people like Byron, Lord Byron, were on the right track. He was a poet who was also a warrior, or wanted to be, and wanted to be so much did he finance a private small army and went to war to fight for freedom of Greece at that time, 1860, I think, something like that, where the Western powers, England and France, have decided finally we have to free Greece, the origin of our culture. We have to free from the Ottoman Empire occupation, and there was a war against Turkey and Ottoman Empire, and Lord Byron participated in it, and he actually tried to embody the fate of the Greek Trojan heroes, and he died, but he died not in battle. He died on, he got some disease, he was an infection disease, but he at least tried to be a warrior. Most of the romantic poets were dreamers, and that is what we have to prevent, that our poetry carries us away into those never Xanadus. Ne? Ba, 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 ba. Accordingly, this direction of kind of compensative flight into the fantasy driven by the cognitive will to power ended then in the Gothic novel. We have Shelley's Mary Shelley, Byron, all together on that lake at Geneva, and she writes the Gothic novel, prototype, Frankenstein. And this is what goes on and on and on in thousands of variations of horror, monster, music, background, terrible music in background, movies of Netflix and whatever we have, Amazon and Hollywood and Disney. This is today's decadence, which Nietzsche rightly criticized in the Joyful Science. I think it is the aphorism 370 or 375. I think one of them, when he talks about the romantic pessimism. Romantic pessimism, he discerned on the ground of romantic poetry and romantic music, especially Wagner, then at the late Wagner, where the soul needs such a strong shattering, such a strong shaking to realize that it is living at all. That's why it must be all ecstasy of, bodily torture, crazy scenes, magnitude. Phenomenologically speaking, the quantity of all perception must be heightened, not the quality, not the depth of intuition. Another place in Zarathustra, Nietzsche says, the great changes come in the moments of silence. On spider feet they come. There are the moments in which the strong soul discerns a great deception after absorbing a lot of experiences, and it formulates the new value for itself. This is the beginning of the great change, the creation of new values. That's why I repeat myself mainly, maybe because I don't know what was not recorded after I spoke on and on for an hour before I realized memory full. This is terrible, memory full on my recording device. No? Okay, so on silent, spidery feet come the great change. Comes the great change. Not in the noise of the herd, not in the revolutionary battle, not in the warrior on the battlefield in ecstasy of killing and blood rapture. This is only implementation of already valid values that have been implanted into the souls of the soldiers, of the warriors, of the poets, and they simply execute it. Ne? The mastermind is behind. There is no change for the good of life. This is when your new value is created, when you see through it. So, and the romantic pessimism is the medium in which no new values are born, in which only a quantitative maximum of the so far valid values is combined together, so that a kaleidoscope of violent and beautiful and large and loud and fast images is combined, and you are being, polished by it. It's being drawn through your brain like a hot rod of, shocking, and you really feel, oh, wow, this is a hammer of another kind, and you feel you are alive. And this is what a decadent culture needs to shake itself, to feel that it is alive. A great emotion, a great ecstasy, be it even a perverted emotion, fear, disgust, perversion, which is abundantly offered in the mass media today, is better than the emptiness. Better than the emptiness. Similarly, as Nietzsche criticizes the worldview, the apocalyptic worldview, and the punishment visions of the Christian fathers, because they have created such a Hollywood kind of style of final judgment, punishment, and torture, and sin, and perversion that will be done to the sinners, the torture that will be forever. This has given the Christians a kind of a great boosting up of their subconscious mind, of desire for purity, fear from torture, and became interesting. Life became interesting once more when the positive impulse of the early Hellas and Greece and Rome was lost. What shall we do? What shall we do if we do not have those beautiful, shining, positive, manly kind of ideals? So there was a diversion to explain this. There was a short diversion about the Eros and the Sexus, with the stress on Eros as the guiding force of the young love, which should be also, enabled in the future schools for Zarathustra's children, or the warrior poet schools. La, la. And now let's return back to that triad that I have found before the recording was stopped due to the memory full problem. I was talking about the warrior poet child, a triad. And I was asking, what can the child do what the warrior cannot do, what the camel could not do? It is to be a new source of creation, of so far unperceived depth, and of untried experiments, and of a vision that is coming from far away, maybe even from the depths of the cosmos. Then I have introduced, for better understanding, the ontology of the earth and cosmos, effective powers. What are the effective powers of cosmos and the earth and the biosphere of the earth? And what is the way of their operation? Because that is what we have to feel and then understand if we want to take our inspiration from it, or better to say, if the inspiration is coming out of this realm, that we accept it as true. It is impossible to say we want inspiration. True inspiration is passive. It is not an act of volition. That is congruent with Nietzsche's paradigm of necessity. Everything what happens necessarily. Let's have a closer look at it. How can we explain it ontologically? We have been so long used to understand something because we get it explained theoretically, how it happens behind the scenes that we see behind the phenomenal experience. This is maybe a great achievement of the Greeks, maybe also a great danger for the modern ones, because such an explanation can be close to actuality, or it can depart very far away from it. And then if you take a very far away departed explanation, a model of actuality, if you take it for reality, then you are in trouble, because you have a map that does not agree with the terrain, and you go astray, you get lost, and on a large scale of a civilization on a planet, you will destroy your race of intelligent beings and maybe even the biosphere. So what is the ontology of the actual forces of cosmos and the biosphere of the planet Earth, and then of all the organisms that live in this biosphere? A big question! Nobel Prize. Or at least an honest support for the spreading of this idea. So, we have taken it from the source. I named the sources: Rupert Sheldrake, Morphogenetic Field Theory, the theory of morphogenesis; Ludwig Klages, the biocentric phenomenology; and Nietzsche, the idea of necessity, and of decadence, and of cadence. Cadence is the opposite to decadence, which is musical term, rising, spreading, life-supporting energies, and the decadence is falling, dissipating, life-diminishing energies. So the actuality is a kaleidoscope, to say, of morphogenetic fields, of the software fields of living matter. Another older word is the soul of all organisms, and we have modern word software of living matter, now morphogenetic field, informational field. That are all synonyms for us. And this is the quality of all that is, that happens. All organisms naturally have a soul field, morphogenetic field. All so-called conglomerates of living matter, like lakes, mountains, rivers, fields, meadows, landscape, continents, planets, and stars, have this informational soul field. It may be composite, made of many individual organisms. This is basically a panpsychism, as so proclaimed or spread by great philosophers like Albert Noll, Whitehead, and others, especially the German romantics. Okay, these fields are dynamic and they spread and they have an innate tendency to merge when they are similar. The similar draws similar to each other simply by the similarity of structure and dynamic structure, and the opposite tendency is to repel the dissimilar logically, because it cannot merge with it. Repelling, looked from another perspective, is not being able to merge. It finds no connection. So, and this is the tendency of to repel on to merge with similar and repel the dissimilar, and then immediately that which is the unification, which is the new morphogenetic field, that is an innate tendency to embody in the living matter. The whole evolution of species is expression of that. That's why when we study the matter, like the empirical sciences, and we measure the data that are measurable, we are only measuring the effects of this morphogenesis, as Rupert Sheldrake has rightly pointed out. There comes the aspect of necessity. This is the Nietzsche hammer, because there is no one who is presiding over this dynamic stream of merging and and dissolution and solution and repelling and new software fields are arising, and they immediately embody in the living matter as a species, like Rupert Sheldrake would say, a cat when it is born grows into the shape of a cat from the small fetus due to the inherited matrix, the morphogenetic fields of a cat dynamically growing body is embodying in it immediately. And it happens necessarily because there's no one who is guiding it, no one who is inventing it, no one who is commanding it, no one who is evaluating it. Like it was in the Plato vision of the Platonic ideas, they were not dynamic, and it was the precondition for the evaluation. Because if I have a static ideal idea, then I can judge the individual embodiments according to how much of this ideal they embody. So we see a direct connection between any static idea who actually is driven by the desire, by the will to punish, to evaluate, to divide between good and bad. Good copies of the perfect idea, a bad copy. Okay, but this is not the case in our panpsychism. Everything happens absolutely by itself, necessarily. The principles are similar attracts similar, dissimilar is repelling dissimilar, and then necessary embodiment immediately. That's why Nietzsche hammer is hitting the surface of a hollow space, a drum maybe, or a vase, a container, and it shatters because it has nothing inside that would be real, actual. It is only the surface. So we have this. How do we apply it to the development of our ideal warrior poet child? Yes, naturally, his development is also necessary. And this is what makes it so unpleasant for those who are excluded from this ideal process. No? Ideal, it is in the sense of a necessary chance. And that's why we need the child. That's why we need to overcome the last stage, which was the warrior. We have to become the lion. In Nietzsche's triad, it is the last man and then the first transformation into the camel, the learning one who learns, then the transformation of the camel into the lion, the one who roars, runs into the mountains and lives on his own, tries his theory in practice, and then the third transformation, the child, which opens completely new possibilities because it is not limited by implementing the worldview of the lion. The lion is in opposition to the herd, and he successfully implements this idea of hunting, sleeping alone under the stars, and of procreating if he is the strongest one and can defeat in the fight all other young lions. But he's nevertheless limited in this. Because he cannot open his soul field into such a great distance that he would be inspired by over-personal sources of information. That is, he would fly on the wings of the cosmogonic Eros and, become a cosmic child or the earth child, because even the earth itself is not known in this quality, that everything which is living on earth and everything which is happening on earth, like winds and storms and lakes and rivers, they are expressions of the soul of the planet Earth and cosmos. So necessity, no external government, no otherworldly commanding, no final judgment, no evaluation of what is embodying, and no division between good and evil copies of the ideal, because the ideal itself is dynamic, it is changing. If you are not shattered cognitively by this information, then you are not the true pupil of Zarathustra, because so far, for many thousand years until Nietzsche, the Platonic system was in the background, behind all philosophy and all religion and all science. This Gnostic idea that there is some perfect form, unmoving, even if they conceived it of it that it could be a process, there could be a procedure from one ideal form to the ideal form, which was necessary, maybe introduced by Aristotle, that if you have to have a development at all, if you don't want to be Parmenidean, that is one ball of full ball, unchanging, everything identical with itself, if you want to have a change and development which is obvious in the phenomenal world, then what can you do if you are a Platonic thinker? You have either the choice that the Hindus have done, you proclaim all what you perceive as an illusion. It is an illusion, okay, which was also tried by the subjective idealists in European tradition like Bishop Berkeley. All what I see, or I experience, what I feel is the production of mind-brain. The reality is an illusion. It is a direct step to the present ideas of simulation theory, that we live in a simulation. Okay, so this is one solution, to proclaim everything is an illusion. The other solution is to make the ideal dynamic, to prescribe a certain sequence of steps even to the ideal realm, but nevertheless they will be binding. They will be the ones that the fallen matter, which has fallen away from this matrix of God, from this ideal development, has to return to. And this is the deepest idea of the gnosis. There must be some hidden secret formulas. We shall find them. And once we find them, we can only speak them out, implement them, and we shall return to the Holy Grail. We shall rise above the mortal matter. We shall be with the gods. This is driving all gnosis and all science and all idealistic philosophy until now. Especially now, where there is such a great confusion, so many preachers of the other worlds arise, because the confusion is great among the discerning ones about those who do not just succumb to the consumer life. Consumerism is the main solution. Don't think, just eat and enjoy, okay? The discerning one starts to doubt, and then he's confused by so many offers. And if he's of the weak kind, of the weak physiology, he will naturally tend to a kind of remedying ideology that will tell him, listen, you are suffering now, or you are not fully developed, you are not strong, you are not healthy, you are not creative. But once you find the secret Holy Grail, once you find hidden matrix under some pyramid, I want to find the secret book where all the magic formulas are. There you will be transformed to the gods. And you see, practically 99% of the Hollywood, Netflix, and Amazon production thrives on this. All the successful films are like that now. Necessity. No one at the controls. And then great responsibility for the warrior poet who is rising up to the third transformation, the child, to be honest with himself. This is what Nietzsche was. Even if he was a decadent, partly he recognized it. And because he was so honest to himself, he noticed the contradiction he was involved in, because he had two definitions of the will to power: the cognitive, the priestly, and the biological, the warrior style, the cellular life itself. Will to power. So the same is expected from all of us who are on the way to become Zarathustra's children. Are we real? Are we creators? Are we discerners? Or are we just actors? Are we just admirers of Zarathustra? The book ends, thus speaks Zarathustra, with the last chapter, when the so-called higher man, which is the top educated, wealthy cream of society of his time, come to the cave in the mountains, and they say, look, now we understand. Zarathustra was right. Even with all our wealth and education and power and political power and military power, cultural power, we are receding, we are waning, we are disappearing into the shade. No transformation is possible. We can only, close ourselves and die in our isolation as individuals. And for that, we can also fight against the onslaught of the young or onslaught of the other cultures who would like to become, dominant on the planet Earth. Or we can understand Zarathustra that there is a transformation of such a deep quality necessary that all will be changed. And this is the transformation to the child. They come to Zarathustra's cave and they acknowledge and they held speeches to celebrate him, and then they believe in him, and then they worship him, then they drink and sleep and snore. Zarathustra leaves them because he is, his soul field is pure. He cannot stand to be close with these vapors of decadence. Because this is a form of decadence on the highest level, when, because of inability to authentically create themselves, they finally bow in front of the one true creator, Zarathustra. But they want to be students again, they want to be, worshippers again, they want to have a kind of easy way out. They will worship now him who's supposed to be the right one. Nietzsche doesn't want that, and didn't want it in his personal life, and Zarathustra didn't want it either. He goes away, rises, he sleeps somewhere else near the cave, rises with the rosy dawn, and what do we see, what do we hear, what is described? I think he was some 80 years old, this guy, in the novel, Zarathustra, but he stands up with a kind of, a young step. He is, elastic, gymnastic, swinging arms, upright chest, and bright eyes, and he walks away, and his animals come, and he sees the dove, he feels the doves around his arms, and the thick skin, fell of the lion, his mane, boom, and the eagle above him, and that, what does it mean? He walks away from man. He immerses himself once again to the last time in the morphogenetic fields and in the phenomenal experience of the biosphere of the planet Earth. Because it is from where he accepts the new, the childish power in himself. He receives it from them, because nature renews itself through, the dying of the old one and the birth of the new one, the regeneration. As he says somewhere else in Zarathustra, from genera we rise to supergenera. When the heroes depart, the superhero arrives. This is a cascade of necessary deepening and transforming of the morphogenetic fields of the planet Earth. The interest of life is looked upon as a whole, the biospheric body of the planet Earth is to live. It is not to die. It is to live, and it is to live more fully. It is, you can look at the whole transformation of evolution, all those myriads of tentacles and noses and skins and eyes and ears of all kinds, and smelling nozzles and whatever. These are the ayatanas. These are the openings of perceptual organs through which the signals, the measurable signals from the biosphere enter the inner body of the organisms, and finally where they are harvested is in the soul field. The great divide will forever remain unbroken. Empirical science can never understand, because it can never measure, the qualitative change between the path of the signals that run through the nervous system of all animals and plants in the evolution of life on this planet, and the soul domain where all this was experienced. Okay, so there is where the child is destined to open its soul field to new sources of signals. Okay, I mean, it's destined to open either its new body, if it is a body, kind of transformed body, into new signals, sharpening its organs, deepening its organs, which was also a way the Gnosis has gone, by imagining that the transformation will be the transformation of the human body, and it will be a rarefied body, and that's why this body will then have the ability to receive unheard of, unseen of, unsmelled of, so it will be a super sensitive organism. We go a different way. We surmise that the transformation of the child is such a quality that his soul field enlarges enormously and deepens its quality, as was in the human evolution. According to the biocentric phenomenology of Ludwig Klages, it was the first step that took us from the animal kingdom, and the step was the enlargement of the soul field. It was not a kind of mechanistic discovery that our hands, the ape hands, were trying to get hold of some stones for millions of years, and then and the thumb rotated inward 90 degrees. The thumb joined so that it was possible to hold objects within the thumb and the other digits. That was, on the contrary, this was an expression of the enlargement of the soul field, which could feel and imagine the usage of such objects now, in the sense that in the soul field of such an ape man, a vision arose that by holding the piece of stone and holding the branch of the tree, he could achieve the same what he saw when the stone fell down by gravitation and hit by chance an animal, or when the branch of the tree fell down by chance or hit by the lightning and crushed something. So when he could make this association in his soul field, that moving that stone and moving this branch by his own hand could achieve similar effect, then he started to get hold of the stone, get hold of the branch. I'm getting far away. Okay, let's see. Our main line is describing the development of the one ideal archetype, warrior, poet, child. That would be the goal also of the heroic schools of Zarathustra, warrior poet schools that must be, arising in Europe now, and maybe in America, and maybe in Russia, maybe in China, maybe in India, maybe, New Zealand, because we have Lord of the Rings there, also hammering all around. If European civilization is to survive, okay, and implement its individual quality into the human race on the planet Earth, okay. We have the Asiatic nations that are absolutely valuable and perfect, but they have not undergone the stages of antiquity, Rome, Greece, then Middle Ages, Renaissance, Enlightenment, Romanticism, modern times, postmodern time. So the souls of the individual humans in India and in China and all the nations in between and Africa are not so torn apart. There is not such a strong demand on unity because they are not so torn apart. We have, since the Greeks, suggested so many variations of the metaphysical kind of realm, okay, that we are confused by it. But this confusion also has grown into a wide soul field that is, huge and deep and can relate then to the cosmic field and the planetary field. So Europeans should not, and the descendants of the Europeans, should not be proud like they used to be when they were colonial dictators and oppressors, where they have used only their technological advance to suppress the other nations with military power. Countless poets and countless romantics have protested against this. Countless sensitive people and religiously oriented people have protested against this oppression of the rest of the planet by the colonial, military and financial powers. Business. It was of no help because the European individual was not so far to understand it, what is happening with him. It may be a difficult task, but we may try it. And Nietzsche, Zarathustra, has shown us the plan. So when we return to this last scene in the Das Spake Zarathustra book, we see Nietzsche leaving those higher men those who want to worship him, who want to make him to a new god, because he feels this will bring nothing in actuality. It will be another university. It will be another political party. It will be another workshop for the weekend. And these people are rich, so they can pay me whatever I ask for. But this will not lead to the transformation of man, of the warrior, into a child. By the way, they are not at all warriors. They are decadent ones. So he leaves them, and he goes with the doves, which are a symbol of the future children who will necessarily come. Nietzsche was very confident that the future will bring the revival of his ideas, because he clearly saw that either this will happen or the demise, destruction of the European cultures will be the result. So the child is the last transformation. And that's why Nietzsche describes Zarathustra as a child. He's 80 years old, but he walks like a young man, and his eyes are bright, and he's going unknown to what? He probably has to find new happy isles. He has to go to the Hyperborea or whatever, to the islands of the happy ones, no? Joyous ones, some other continent, and maybe even some other planet. So, child, what does the child do that the camel cannot do, what the lion can do? As you have said, the first step from the animal kingdom to the human quality was, according to biocentric phenomenology, the enlargement of the soul field. Slowly, gradually, we could feel that which was not immediately close to the body. We could imagine that which was not visible with our physical eyes. Okay? We could pre-imagine something which is completely inaccessible to any physical organ of perception. And this was an enlargement of the soul field, because intuition, vision, clairvoyance, and all that stuff, creative imagination, ontologically speaking again, is a merging of the individual soul field that is stretched far away in time and space from the physical body, and of the larger morphogenetic fields of the planetary or cosmic biosphere. Out of this merging, in this, even Rupert Sheldrake goes so far that would say the optical perception does not happen in the brain. The phenomenal experience of it does not happen in the brain. What happens in the brain is the correlation, the traces in the nerves are measurable when the true phenomenal experience happens outside of the skull, in the realm, in the space where the soul field of the individual perceiving person and the biosphere merges. There is the ontological place for the phenomenal experience, inclusive its emotions. But nevertheless remains connected, and it is stretched. It is not, discontinuous. It is a continuous stretching from the body. The body as a whole, individual human body, is penetrated fully by the soul field, but similar to, analogical to the electromagnetic field, it penetrates all the cells of the body as well as the electromagnetic field of the electromotor, penetrates all the atoms of the motor and stator, but spreads beyond this electromotor. So the soul field spreads also beyond the body. And then what happens? Then the next qualitative transformation and enlargement of the soul field happens in the evolution of mankind, and the new child will necessarily experience phenomenally contact with far more distant and deeper fields of the planet Earth and the cosmos. There is where the contacts with aliens are most probable. There is where deep ecology insights, as far as the quality of the planetary biosphere is concerned, they are to be expected. No? We have a nice image of the Child of Zarathustra in the scene from Space Odyssey 2001, when the astronaut, who is the top, product of the technological civilization, travels then through the black hole to unknown depths of the universe, and he experiences all kinds of time and space contraction and dilation, and he sees himself as an old, as young, and whatever. He comes then back to the earth in the what? In the body of a new child, because if there has to be new beginning, if there has to be new chapter into human history, it cannot be done by old, crooked, man and some old witches. They sit above the cauldrons and, that will be done by children. And what happens? He is coming back, and the old paradigm reacts, with hostility. They send some atomic rockets against this incoming whatever they think it is from the space. And the child, the cosmic child, it is now the cosmic child that has been reshaped and whose soul field has been enlarged under the wings, under the guidance of the cosmogonic Eros. This child has completely different abilities, perceptions and abilities. He simply reacts asymmetrically. He lets the incoming rockets disappear. Maybe he, by a simple wish of imaginary kind of implementation of an image, he moves them into the interior of the sun, when they explode and nothing happens. And the old man, the last man, even the higher man on the planet Earth, that is all the politicians, all the professors, all the scientists, all the Nobel Prize candidates and whatever, they have to break their heads about what now? If there is this power that can simply dematerialize all our weapons, what shall we do? And nothing happened. This is good. Asymmetrical reactions. This is how a wise alien intelligence or cosmic intelligence would deal with a civilization on the brink of its self-destruction. Probably it is the default case. Intelligent civilizations are many on this planet, in this galaxy, scattered through time and space. And intelligence requires the ability for representing the phenomenal experience in, cognitive models, this is the great power of the cognitive will to power. Maybe that at some time, by a lucky stroke of coincidences, an animal that is the crown of the evolution on a certain planet is so healthy and so strong and so, diverse that the physical evolution cannot go any further. Then there must be a jump into a kind of cognitive evolution. This enables then the representation of the phenomenal reality. And this goes on and on until this species makes super technology and culture and religion and whatever, with many of the mistakes, no? And then it stands at the end when it penetrates the secret of matter and the secret of its own life, the genetic code, and then it destroys itself by not letting go, by not feeling that this empiric and scientific investigation on the modification of nature and its own body is not a new quality. It is from the beginning of the simplest tools and the forest jungle until the most sophisticated quantum computers. It is the same style, the same quality. Something else is asked for. This is the opening of the soul field to the so-called paranormal, to the mysterious, to the magical. And that means in our descriptive terms, the magical, the paranormal is a term which tries to cover the real ontology of what is happening when magic and wonder happens. It is a soul field of the wonder doer, of the magician, enlarges into such a depth and distance of earth and cosmos that it can be boosted, let us say, it can be united with so far unknown causal relationship, spatial relationship, time relationship, and growth relationship. And then the expression of it is not magical, it is natural. Only nature on a deeper level is embodying here, or the soul field from far further and deeper realms of life and cosmos and are embodying. So this is an ideal picture of how it should, naturally there is a great danger nothing of this happens. As we have said, default value is the planetary civilizations have destroyed all themselves because they have not waited and until this ripening of the soul field of the top representatives of the human race will happen spontaneously out of necessity. Out of necessity. This obviously we must remember. When you are patient, when you devote with extreme diligence and study whatever it is, fully, 100%, then you come to the end, and to the so far possible end of it. And then what? Either you are the worker, the servant, even the scientists are mostly workers or servants. You apply your knowledge to whatever is the ruling, commanding sphere, and you get a good job, and you get good money, and you can live your life like a good worker. You understand it and you do it. You do not question it. Or you say, okay, now what next? And then you go on. You are being drawn by the yet unexperienced, and this transforms you. So this is it. To prevent the self-destruction of a civilization like that, we have to help to find children and young men. I mean, we shall have a special kind of branch of our institute if we find women that are on this level. First in contact and in discussion, they can take care of the girls. We, the warriors, poets, and bards, will take care of the boys, because we were ourselves boys, and we know exactly what was happening with us and what troubles we have had. So this is what is necessary to be done. The great danger is that schools like this, projects like that, will be destroyed either by the outspoken enemies of life that want nevertheless to destroy all life on earth. This is no problem. We can understand this. This is out of envy and hate towards life. They cannot stand life. But if the main force of the planetary biosphere is enlargement and verification, this diversification and deepening of life experiences, then they will be taken care of by the planet herself. Then there are the middle ones that are not decided, that have abilities. They are interested in staying alive and raising families and having a good life, but they are not the poet warriors, they are the workers. They study and collect their wisdom and abilities to sell it for the ruling ones, to the ruling ones. And the ruling ones, unfortunately, are the most decadent ones today, unfortunately. And they may be manipulated by those who want to destroy life completely, or at least all life that is different from them. Human life. How can a certain race or a group of people wish to destroy the life of the others and maybe the large part of the life of the planet by they have to risk a war for this? Well, because the metaphysics is life animical. No other explanation is possible. When your metaphysics says that this planet is a failure, basically, as the Gnosis says, it was falsely created by a demiurge who was kind of intervening in the works of the real creator, of the good God, who did not intend to create a material earth but only a software realm earth. Then you have you don't worry about the destruction of this material earth, because then you try to escape from it by some gnosis, by some secret teaching, and then you will join the original godlike software sphere where there is no mistake. Also, if you are an adherent of metaphysics in which this planet was created by one power, one God, as a testing area for the humans, and then that will be abolished at the end when the humans have proved that they are no worth, they have no worth because they are all sinners. This is not a slightly psychology in this creator who creates a world and then creates also the possibility for the intelligent being to sin, and he accuses to transgress, and then he creates the rules, then he creates the ability to transgress against his rules, then he accuses the transgressors of sin, and he punishes them forever for that. Well, looked upon like that, it's a psychopath God who has pleasure in torturing his creation. We have a different model. Luckily, we have found it in the Nag Hammadi codices. It does not have to be ontologically true, but it is psychologically plausible, phenomenally plausible, and it agrees completely in its effect with the biocentric phenomenology. This is the John Lablache story of the fallen goddess scenario, that the planet Earth, the physical body of the planet, is a transformed physical body of an aeonic light source that came to the position and the third arm of the galaxy when the so-called Sophia, which is a plasmatic surge of energy from the galactic center and creator par excellence, threw herself into this area of the galaxy and transformed herself into a planetary body, Earth, the Gaia. So you have the Sophia Gaia theory, and the anthropos, the human being, was also created as a genome by Sophia when she was still in the center of the galaxy with her consort, a yin. She is a yin aspect of cosmic creative energy, and her consort Teletes is a yang aspect of the creative cosmic energy. And then when they both merged, then the new genomes can be created. One of them is the genome of the anthropos. This is who we are genetically. There's a special ingredient in this genome, and it is the creative imagination, the epinoa. That's why I cannot stand up and get on the bike and run to the lake and swim and whatever, as I did the last days when it was beautiful sunshine, and I was feeling kind of, at the end of this physical exercise, now something else must come, transformation, and I have a big speech here. Boom, creative imagination. I create a new world for myself and maybe for you also. So we have said, we are the discerners, we are the poet warriors, warrior poets, because we have said, finally we have to admit that the biological cellular will to power, the metabolism of myriads of cells in our body are the decisive platform which will determine even our cognitive will to power. Okay, our ability to explain, to value, re-evaluate, to feel, and so on, to perceive. So cognitive will to power will be always second, following the waves and the quality of the cellular bodily will to power. And why did I sometimes Well, it is a good sign of an inspired speech that you have an idea, that you are inspired and you want to describe it visually in a kind of digression, and you immerse yourself so much into the digression that you lose the point from which you jumped into this digression in your speech, like you were going like a squirrel on the tree trunk up. You want to go to the top, and then you take the first branch to the right, and when you are at the end of the branch, you have suddenly an impulse to jump down and then again up, and you stay in this loop. Né? When you return to the stem, you have to go up following the original direction if you are an inspired speaker. So what do we have? As we have said, the danger for us comes not so much from the enemies of life par excellence, who want to destroy all life that is not according to their decadence, because they will be taken care of by larger forces, deeper forces of the planet itself and of cosmos itself. The middle type enemies are that which we should be taking care of. Those are those who want to, preserve the status quo, the lifestyle that has enabled them to live richly and pleasantly without being hurt, even though they participated in jobs that were not creative and that were frequently outright inimical to life. Like if you have people who say, okay, I need a job, I'm working in a factory that produces artillery shells and some mines, and then I have my good money, regular insurance, and I can go for a holiday into the mountains and envision your the work you have done is crushing and destroying the planet and bodies of other human beings far away from you. This is the great danger. We have to take away from them the naivete of being a good person, following the orders of the authority, taking care even of their children. My children have to eat. I have to work in this business or in this project. Otherwise, you don't know the qualities, the desire of the father or mother to take care of her children if you don't have any. We say, okay, but why don't you join with others similar to you and work with your hands and grow vegetable and food, and your Fräulein or your women can sew clothes and take medical care courses and read fairy tales. You create communities where you are independent and you work in jobs that are life-supporting. You don't destroy Earth and somebody else's life, and you can take care of yourself. Not do this. So this is our, apart from educating and training and teaching the lucky ones who are poets, warriors, and had the great possibility to become Child of Zarathustra, to educate them. We have also to gain support of those middle ones. The real enemies of life will never support us. They will try to destroy us. But the middle ground people, they can realize that if they are not themselves able to be on the road to the new Superman, it would be good for their children to live in such a society, compared with the digital concentration camps and extermination kind of technologies that are the necessary outcome of the enemies of life when they come to unlimited power. So if you are one of those middle ground people, you have admiration for what we say from the plan from poet heroic schools and stuff like that, and temples and education workshop centers and farms and so on. Okay, and you cannot do it yourself, then support it, or make a very courageous step and come to us yourself and say, okay, I cannot, but I admire it and I love it. Admiration, as you have said, is not enough in case that you want to be one of us, because admiration can easily slide into a transformation into envy and then into hate. Whereas when you truly love, you are patient and you are devoted and grateful for being a part of a greater project. Nah? Love is always passive. True love is passive. It does not want to change its object. Nah? Whereas envy is cognitive. Envy is active. It's a cognitive act slashing out from the ego, and its desire is to destroy the object of envy. Okay, so this is it. I finish now. I hope I have. Yes, the last idea was that was not recorded. I think I got into that. There's a great enlightenment possibility of those middle ground people if they are balanced in the character, if their warrior type, that is the biological will to power, their metabolism, and their cognitive will to power are somehow in balance, and they have been only forced by circumstances to reduce themselves, to become workers, to become obeyers, and not to try to become discerners and overgoers on the transcending ones. It is a great possibility that in a longer contact with the ones that are true warrior poets, you will ignite the hidden flame in you. It must be in you, it cannot be just implanted. But if it is in you, and you have felt several times in your life history that you have, made a step back, renouncing your greatest dreams, and you suffer under it, like, you function well, you are a good worker, you are a good father, you do your jobs and their routines, but there is something missing. I think it can be a case of many intelligent and harmonious people today. Then come to us or start a new project, make a workshop with us, live with us for some time, and then start your project of your own in your hometown. This way you will have both. You have the love of your neighbors and home of your countryside, and an authentic feeling of living to the full of your capabilities. But you have to love this. As I said, admiration is not enough. As Goethe says, if you cannot love something you admire, go away. Because if you stay and you have only an admiration and devotion, when you come to the iron wall of necessity and you will feel that you cannot, your admiration will change into hate and envy, and you will destroy what you have admired, either in you or even the object of your admiration. So, last remark is to the method of this inspired speech with the vibration of the guitar on my skull and on sideways on my heart. This is what I have taken from Nietzsche's notes about music. He said without music, life would be a mistake. Because life itself is musical. Life itself is rhythmical. In the deep of your body, biological rhythms are playing the symphony of life. Vibrations that penetrate the skull, the brain, the heart, the lungs, the ribs, to contribute very much to this rhythm of the biological will to power, metabolism of the individual cells, the inherited power in you. It can also enhance the poetic power, because it is the way of the old bards of Europe, especially the Irish bards, the Celtic bards, and the Homeric bards, early Hellenic and we would say Mycenaean bards. Were not holding ideological lectures about what should be. They were in ecstasy, seeing, with their third eye, images of, and they were actually embodying the potential of the biosphere, of the landscape they lived in, and were merging this potential with the souls of man, telling the stories of the great heroes, but they were not telling them like, reading them from the book or from memory. They were reliving them visually and emotionally. They saw it. And in this way, they were in the Akashic records, basically. They were reading, they were witnessing, they were walking through the memory fields of the landscape. Because there it is where the ecstatic experiences, phenomenal quality experiences of all living organisms are stored. That is actually an ever enlarging informational field of the biospheric life. Out of it, transformations arise. Out of it, new merging groups of informational fields build. So if a bard is in ecstasy and he flies through the myth of his people, he's actually creating this myth once again. He's enlarging, developing, dynamically reliving this myth, and it comes into his listeners, and they can embody it if they're inspired. Similarly to the Aborigines in Australia, before we have, made their lifestyle impossible by our, greedy, empiric kind of way of life when Australia was occupied, and the local population was, destroyed almost completely. Aborigines were doing that what I am doing on a large scale, in a group. They were walking forever through the desert of Australia, and they were singing the myth of creation, and by singing it, they were recreating it, they were holding it in embodiment. Their songs enhanced the soul field, the morphogenetic field, the informational field of the landscape, and then it embodied into stone and sand and trees and underwater, underground rivers, endlessly on and on. They were one with the landscape. They were the creators of their own life sphere. Why didn't they succeed against the oppressors, against the invasion of the European invaders in the 17th, 18th, 16th century? Why did not the Celtic priests overcome the Roman invaders? Great question. Were they not fully in contact with the soul of the biosphere of their landscape? Boom. Did they still believe that they have to address themselves to some personified gods, that these personified gods would help them, or maybe some personified animals, like the Aborigines may have had some goddess of the night or the goddess of the desert. I mean, I don't know, I'm not expert in this, but if you still think cognitively that your bardic performance, your ecstatic ritual is a gnostic exercise through which you hook into the realm of some greater power which yet stands above this ritual, then you are wrong in my interpretation. Then you bereave yourself, what is the correct? Then you make it impossible to unleash the full potential of your imaginative power, of your epinoa, of creative power, because you still bow in front of some, imagined authority. You don't want to do it. You are afraid to do it yourself. You are afraid to become a god in man. You are afraid to become a Superman. At least so far. I'm also afraid. But at least in this ecstasy of creation with the vibration of the guitar on my skull, after a day full of sunshine and sport and running and I dare to make this step because I'm a poet and I was a true poet all my life. And if I don't write poetry, it is because I have nothing to say. But if I try to write poetry, I will never make simply verses or repeat some other verses, Maybe this is the cause while so far the Mother Gaia loving cultures have not succeeded because they wanted the mother to make it for them, or some other gods. There is a hint in John Lamb Lesch's, not in his image book, that it can be otherwise in the narrative of the fallen goddess scenario. Why? Because it is a desire of the goddess of Gaia and Sophia to make the new man really creative, to be a co-creator, because she maybe wants to we could speculate, like Zarathustra wanted friends and co-creators, not admirers and devotees, that's why he sent them all away. Then Gaia Sophia wants co-creators, and if she is a yin power of the cosmos, that is symbolically a woman, she always wants a lover, a poet who loves her truly. Maybe then she can make a step and embody as an earthly woman and be in the rapture of individual love, which she, as a planetary force, cosmic force from the center of the galaxy, cannot experience. So this is a speculation of mine. Also, a wink to women who are listening to this. You should prove Nietzsche wrong when he says that women so far is not capable of friendship. Okay, so you should listen to the Gaia Sophia and become co-creators and be friends and sisters to the goddess. La, la, la. And then among yourselves, create then schools and farms and temples and workshops and sport education centers for girls to make them, like goddesses. Okay, we shall not do it. We are warriors. We shall stay in our warrior school. As I had the vision, I had the vision already 25 years ago. I finished with this. As I climbed for the first time from the Limnakaros plateau to the top of the Dikti mountain on Crete at night, which is the island of the Great Mother, naturally, the oldest culture on the European continent, where the Mother was worshipped. It was long before the patriarchal hordes of men on horses have arrived in Greece, on the territory of Greece. Okay, 2,000 years before, Minoan Crete was already a high culture. As I rise up, I stop on the slopes of the Dikti mountain, and I see the Lassiti plateau below me. It was like a ring of jewels, like a crown of jewels. It is a completely flat area, 1,400 meters above the sea level, a plateau in the Dikti Mountains, eastern Crete. Then there are 10 towns like jewels, lighted by the night, by lanterns and houses, and so they are shining like a necklace of jewels in a circle, complete perfect circle around the plateau, which is dark. And I was meditating there and exercising my qigong and playing flute, and I saw the temples. And I saw the temple of Zarathustra, and I had the same temple of the Great Mother, opposite to each other, and then I saw the temple of the wind, the temple of fire, temple of water, temple of earth in between. So we have two main temples of yin and yang, cosmic and earthly power. Zarathustra, poet, warrior, child, school, and the Great Mother school for girls, and 4 elementary temples. This is 6, okay. And then among them, this great plateau, which is agriculturally very rich, and the people are really good. I lived there many times, and there we could, make the farms and irrigation and worship and so. That would be a project, one of the centers I envision. The question of Orthodox Greek Church must be dealt with, deeply, honestly, and by contacts with the priests, which I have already had, and I admired them because they are more devoted to the landscape and to the heritage of the Great Mother than they can themselves be aware of, because there are beautiful interiors and they are singing, they're worshipping, even if though they are alone. This is a sign of true devotion. And they are married, and they are farmers frequently, and they merge with the local population. There is not a division between the classes, and generally the social structure on the Lassity Plateau and on Crete generally is very favorable to a kind of truly democratic governmental style, because there are no great landowners. This land is owned by individual farmers for centuries, millennia, and they have the cafenions. They meet regularly in the cafenions, and they discuss and they play cards and they eat and they spread and they work on their own individual farms, which a man who is really a man has to stand on his ground. Otherwise, he's not 100% a hero and cannot be 100% a poet, okay? And then they come together, maybe once, maybe twice during the day, and they discuss what they discuss. I don't understand it, but probably they discuss agricultural and private and family issues. And they even share machines. They have some, machine parks. This is a wonderful structure, a cooperative that is viable for centuries now. And I surmise that genetically among them, there are the Minuans much more percentually, embodied than in the rest of the Crete and Greece, because these coastal regions were overrun naturally by the invaders, several times Venetians and the Turks and the Egyptians, whatever. But in the mountains of Crete, I have always felt the spirit of the Great Mother and of the independence of their great lovers, the original Keftio, the men who were initiated into the mysteries of fertility by the goddess herself. I finish with that, with my great admiration and greeting to Costas, to Babis, to Magnolis, to Marco, and to all those strong men and friendly men I have learned to know intimately on Crete. So, and for us, the European and Northern European warriors, it is a win to do something like that, agriculturally, socially, spiritually, culturally. Here, maybe in the mountains, maybe at the shore of the lakes, maybe in the far north, we shall see. Ahoy! The greeting, let us greet ourselves with ahoy, the greeting of the sailors. Because with Zarathustra, we are fond of embarking on distant seas. We don't know where the journey will take us. We leave the harbor, we burn all the bridges behind us, and we go on the open seas. And as we pass other ships of similarly motivated warriors and poets, we say, ahoy, ahoy. If our sails and if our music and if our dances and if our speeches inspire you, turn your sails and follow us. If you need more time to go on your wild seas and to find your wild wisdom, then go on with our blessing. Ahoy.